Hello and welcome to Justin's Leap to the Past. Justin here. We're done talking about wrestling games for a little while. Some of you are happy about that. Some of you are stopping this video now. I hope you stick around. I'm going to leap further back now to my transition from elementary school to middle school. So in grade school, I was the smart kid, one of the two smart kids, and I can say one of the two because for pretty much all the major study groups, whether it's math, science, social studies, reading, me and another kid, Mikey, we would go to like a special room or the corner of the class or something, and we would do the advanced stuff. So if we were like in 5th grade, we would be doing 7th grade math. In 6th grade, maybe we were doing 8th grade reading, reading Edgar Allan Poe. I remember doing that. I don't know how that came about. I enjoyed it because it made me feel kind of special. And I was getting really good grades, even though it was more elevated curriculum. I felt engaged. I felt satisfied. I was getting good grades, so I was like getting to play a lot of video games at Chuck E. Cheese during every report card period. So yeah, it was good for me. Now in 6th grade, halfway through, my teacher switched. Mrs. Kempfer, I think. This is a while ago. I'm 40 years old, man. Give me a break. Mrs. Kempfer left, and Mrs. Rosenberg came in, and she didn't like me very much. Maybe she didn't like my work ethic, which I would totally understand, but we had this thing called Gifted and Talented that started up around that time. She didn't put me in Gifted and Talented. Now, maybe if I would have gone to my parents and said, hey, I really want to be in Gifted and Talented, maybe they would have caused a stir, would have done whatever, but I didn't have that kind of home relationship. My mom and stepdad were both pretty young and kind of doing their own things and worrying about their own work and working weird hours. So I was, at that point, pretty much raising myself, I think I could say, with all due respect to my stepdad and my mother, who I both care about very much. But Miss Rosenberg still respected my talents enough to suggest me for advanced classes in middle school when it came time to do those kind of recommendations. And I remember her asking me, like, do you want to be in, hey, do you like science? I was like, yeah, sure. She's like, okay, advanced science. You like math? Yeah, math is good. So they put me in the 4 main subjects I went to, when I went to middle school in 7th grade, I was in an advanced classes. Now, whereas we were just kind of 2 and maybe a 3rd or 4th smart kid you could toss in there in my little class of 30, middle school was, they took, 8 different schools and put all their kids in that same grade in there. So instead of it being 2 of us smart kids, it was now a class of 24 of us smart kids. But I think Mikey had left at that point. I still don't know where. Mike Ludke, if you're hearing this or if you know who Mike Ludke is, please get him in touch with me. So it was just me and then a bunch of kids, and some of them knew each other from Gifted and Talented or from their own class at their old schools, their elementary schools, where maybe there were more than just 2 smart kids. So that kind of started a habit of me going where other people knew each other and trying to fit in, which really, my personality type at the best of times, it's hard for me to fit in. So trying to fit in where everybody else kind of had their own established hierarchy has always been a little difficult for me. But it was a rude awakening in 7th grade, not because of the social thing, but because I had homework. In math especially, I remember every night I was supposed to have homework, and every night I didn't do my homework because in elementary school I just skated through, and even if we had big assignments, I wouldn't do them. Normally we'd have little assignments and we could have time in class to do them. I would get them done, yada yada yada, no problem. And then if we had, let's say, a science fair project, I wouldn't do it. But then I would do enough of the daily work and get a good enough score on the test that I was still getting a good grade. I don't know if my parents knew that I would slack in that way, but once I got to 7th grade and was definitely slacking, they didn't know about it, I believe, because I hid that from them. So instead of being proud of my report card to try and get the tokens at the Chuck E. Cheese to play the video games, I stole my report card out of the mail and hid it or disposed it so my parents didn't find it. And they weren't very participatory, so it was a rare occurrence that my mom would go, "Hey, so haven't gotten your report card in a while," and I'd play it off. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, it'd be interesting to see what it was." And she's like, "Well, maybe I'll call the school." "Oh yeah, okay, go ahead." And it never happened to my knowledge. But so I was in these classes, and I went from being the smartest kid in my class to being kind of regarded as the dumbest kid because I wasn't doing the work. I was getting chastised by the teacher. I probably wasn't retaining as much of the information because I wasn't doing the coursework. So by the half point of that year, I got demoted, I guess you could say. I got put back in, if not, maybe all 4 of those classes. I went from being in the advanced to being in the normal versions, and was kind of back to being a big fish in a little pond, sort of, which did me fine. I mean, I guess back then my motivation was excelling rather than achieving just to simulate the work. I don't know. I've never been really to a therapist or whatever to have that discussed, but I assume that that's probably what it is, that I am definitely motivated by positive influence and my own achievements, and being growing up, kind of raising myself. I'm probably an introvert, so when I wasn't living up to my potential, instead of persevering, I kind of shut down, which is what I kind of did from 7th grade on. Middle of 8th grade, my mom remarried. They moved us to a different school district, and it was a fresh start, so I kind of finally started to apply myself a little bit. And I remember going the first day of school, once I got off the wrong bus stop at the high school. I didn't know they went to 2 schools, but once I think I got a lift from a guidance counselor to the middle school, I kind of conceitedly said, like, "Oh, what were my test scores?" And the general placement tests, and I did really good on those because I was still a smart kid. But I went to the normal classes in this new school, and I did pretty well. And again, I didn't really fit in, but I did pretty well. And I remember my social studies class, the teacher was like, "Justin, you would have got an A from me, but you were getting an F at the other school, so I have to combine the 2, and you only averaged a C." And that kind of buzzkilled it for me, I guess you could say. I wasn't super into it. But I'll tell the story. When I was in that social studies class in the first middle school, we had a geography bee, like a spelling bee, but about geography. And I won in my class, in my advanced class. And I remember the kids kind of looking at me like, that kid won? Because I didn't do the work, they didn't think I was a smart kid like them, because they were all doing the work. They were all driven, where I wasn't driven, but I was still smart. So it was really, I took that in. It was a really interesting feeling for me to realize how much they underestimated me. And I guess I didn't mind being underestimated in a sense. So that was maybe my first feeling, my first experience with that. I'll end it here. Well, let's keep this at 9 minutes this time. What was your school like? I really would like people. I love when people leave me comments and tell me their experiences from similar situations. So please leap back to your own past in the comments down below. Give a thumbs up if you're enjoying this. Thanks everybody who's watched so far, and I'll probably talk to you again soon.